My grandmother's hands smelled like dirt, even when they were clean. That's the first thing. She'd washed them 1,000 times, but the soil had gone into the lines of her knuckles and stayed there. And when she held my face as a girl, I could smell the fields right through the soap. 40 years she'd worked that ground, her and my grandfather, and then just her, after he passed. 40 acres outside of Millersburg, the creek on the east side, the barn with the broken weather vane that nobody ever fixed. She called it May Bowden, my ground. She said it differently than she said other things, quieter, like she was telling it to the land and not to me. She died when I was 16. I was standing in the kitchen the morning the papers were explained to us, and I was watching my mother's face. And my mother's face did not change, not once. She already knew what the papers said. She'd known for a long time. The land went to my uncle, my grandmother's son, a man who hadn't worked a single row of it. My name is Ruth. This channel is Ruth the Amish Girl. I grew up Old Order in Ohio, and I left when I was 23. Today I want to tell you about what happened to my grandmother's farm, and what I found out years later about why it had to happen that way. I want to ask you something before we go further. Did someone in your family pass something down? And did it go to the wrong person? Tell me in the comments. I mean that genuinely. Subscribe if you're new. Like the video if you stay till the end. This story takes a turn I didn't see coming for a long time. In our community, when a man died and left land, it passed to his sons. If there were no sons, it passed to the nearest male relative in the district. Women could work land. Women did work land, every day from before light. But the name on the deed, the name at the church meeting when land transfers were recorded, that name was always a man's. This wasn't hidden. It wasn't a secret anyone kept from us. It was just the order of things. And the order of things was God's order, and God's order wasn't up for discussion at the supper table or anywhere else. My grandmother understood this. She understood it the way you understand weather. You don't argue with it, you dress for it. What I didn't understand, not until I was 21 and a woman in my own household, was what that order was actually protecting. It wasn't God. God was how it was explained. The thing it was protecting was something else entirely. 2 years before I left, a woman named Clara Yoder, she farmed 2 plots east of us. Her husband had been dead 4 years. Clara's land came up at a church members' meeting. I wasn't in the meeting. Women weren't in the meeting. I know what happened because my husband came home with a particular kind of quiet on him, the kind that meant something uncomfortable had been decided. Clara had no sons. She had 3 daughters, 2 of them married. She had worked that land alone for 4 years, put crops in, kept the fences, kept the barn. She wanted the land to pass to her eldest daughter, Miriam. Miriam and her husband were already helping farm it. The bishop said no. He said it without cruelty. That's the thing I keep coming back to. He was not a cruel man. He said the land needed to stay within the male line of the district, that this was for the community's protection, that scattered inheritance weakened the whole. Clara said, and I got this from Miriam herself, standing in the cold outside the dry goods store the following week, Miriam's voice completely flat. Clara said, "Bishop, I am the one who put that wheat in the ground." He said he knew that. The land went to a nephew who lived 2 counties over. He sold it within the year. I thought about Clara for a long time after that. I thought about my grandmother. I started asking questions I wasn't supposed to ask. Not out loud, just to myself, in the space between waking and sleep when you can't help it. I thought, if a woman can work land, raise land, know land in her hands and her knees and the back of her neck, and still can't hold it, what is actually being said about her? The answer came to me slowly, and I didn't want it. Land in a closed community is not just soil. It is standing. A man with land has a seat at the meeting. His voice has a different weight. He can make decisions about roads and fences and who builds where and who the community disciplines and why. Land is how men stay men in the structure. If women could hold land, women could hold standing. And if women held standing, not all of it, not equal, just some, the structure of the meeting would have to change. The meeting where discipline was decided, where a bishop's authority was confirmed, where everything was decided. It was never about soil. Here's the thing I did not expect. My grandmother knew. I found out because of a letter. After I left the community, this is years later, my mother sent me a box of things. Practical things, linens, some photos. At the bottom of the box was a letter my grandmother had written and never sent. To my grandfather, while he was still alive. I don't know why my mother kept it or why she sent it to me. In the letter, my grandmother said, and she said it plain, the way she said everything, she said, "I know the land won't stay with our daughters. I know why. I am not angry. I am tired." She wrote, "I want Elsa to know that the ground knows her name, even if the deed doesn't." Elsa was my mother. I sat with that letter for, I don't know, an hour, maybe more. My grandmother had understood the whole system while she was inside it, had named it to herself, and had kept working the land anyway. Every morning. 40 years. I don't know what to do with that. I still don't. Miriam left the community the year after her mother's land was sold. I heard this through the way you hear things after you've left. In pieces, from different people. None of the pieces quite fitting together. Last I knew, she was in Indiana. I don't know if she farms. I think about her sometimes when I'm driving past a field. I think about her mother saying, "I put that weed in the ground," to a man who already knew the answer he was going to give. There are people who will tell you the land rules exist to keep Amish families from selling off to developers, to preserve the community, to protect against outside pressure. And I'm telling you that's partly true. The community did preserve itself, is still preserving itself. There are still farms in Millersburg with Amish names on the deeds. My grandmother's isn't one of them. Her nephew sold it to an English family in 2004, a couple from Columbus. They put a deck on the back of the house. May Bowden. She said it like a prayer, and it didn't protect a thing. The broken weather vane is still on the barn. I drove past once, after I left. I don't know why I did that. I sat in my car on the road shoulder, and I looked at it for a while. That rusted rooster that never pointed true north, and I thought about my grandmother's hands, and the smell of the soap that couldn't quite reach the dirt. She never complained. Not to me, not once. She handed me cucumbers from her garden and sang in German and braided my hair on Sunday mornings. The life she had was real and full, and she made things grow in it. I just wish, I don't know, I wish the deed had her name on it. Not for money, not for anything practical. Just so that somewhere, in some county record in Ohio, there was proof that the ground knew her back. If you've ever watched something that belonged to someone you love get taken in a way that was perfectly legal and completely wrong, tell me about it below. And if you're not subscribed yet, please do. I put out new stories every week. Every one of them is true.